Welcome, everyone, to the beginning of our new series here on Avoiding Babylon. Both Father and I are a little sad tonight, unfortunately. I don't know if any of you in the chat want to guess why at all, but feel free, I suppose. Yeah, some people are wondering already. Oh, look, Anthony was late, everyone.
What a terrible gag.
How're you gonna keep that going?
I don't know. I'm not good. See, that's Anthony's thing. Anthony could pull that off, not me.
Yeah, seriously.
That's nice.
I wanted to pop on originally. It was going to be just me and you and let Rob stay out of it, but I told everybody I was doing like a social media fest, which I am. Off Twitter, which honestly has been it's been clarifying. God kind of has a way of
you guys are mean, she says.
God kind of has a way of humbling you when you get a little too proud. And I had a little bit of humbling the past couple of days. So
I got a Twitter for Advent too, starting now.
Yeah, it's pretty good, man. It gave me some time to reflect on some things. So
you guys all made up now?
Yeah, Rob and I did. I even reached out to the other person who was involved in this, and we're gonna speak tomorrow. So yeah, everything's all good. I apologize if anybody was offended by my behavior. But tonight we're gonna get off that. Real quick, we have a locals that anybody could go and check out. We have a lot of content on it that doesn't make it to here. We're starting
tonight is one of the few nights here won't make it to there because we hit our limit.
We hit our limit. Yeah. I think that there might be an appropriate discussion to have with just our locals subscribers soon, though. So we'll talk about that when that's coming up. We're going to start this series. So Father Dave, Nix, and I have very similar tastes in movies. When we drove to Pennsylvania together, we were talking about some of them. We both loved this movie. We both loved Padre Pio Miracle Man. There was a couple others that we were like, we should actually go on and just have conversations about this. So I think those are the first two we're going to do, right?
Yeah, we also love the Russian movie Ostrov, which means the island, made by Russians. It's sort of more of a Russian Orthodox movie than a Catholic movie. Actually, the producer thought the Russian Orthodox would hate it, but it won all these awards, and the Orthodox loved it when it was made about 15 years ago. But it really gets the notion of a holy fool right.
Yeah.
And, the East has a whole category of saints called Holy Fool. The West has a few like St. Francis of Assisi and St. Philip Neri. But I was shocked how much we love the same movies. There's a few we've discussed. There's probably going to be some movies that you like and I don't, or Rob likes and we don't, or whatever. But that'll make for interesting discussion too. Like the St. Francis one you sent me with Francis with hair.
Yeah. So that's what I was going to say. So I love the movie Francesco, it has Mickey Rourke and I forgot her name. She plays like the Red Queen in the most recent Tim Burton Alice in Wonderland. She's in a bunch of
Carter.
Yeah, Helena Bonham Carter. So she's in it. She plays St. Clair. It's made in like 1979 or 1980, but it doesn't make Francis cheesy. Like it doesn't make him like this hippie lucky go, whatever, where I found Brother, Sun, Sister Moon unwatchable.
It's unwatchable. Yeah. I said to Rob though, I mean, the Mickey Rourke one, he's got hair gel. I said only an Italian would love a St. Francis with
that's why Anthony loves it 100%.
I won't watch anything black and white. That's a rule right now.
No, Song of Bernadette is great. I only watched it for the first time 2 years ago thinking I wouldn't like it, but I did love Song of Bernadette.
Man, I have like this thing. I won't watch black and white movies. I just refuse. It's just that.
Hey, Rob, you want to give us the lowdown on St. Thomas More and A Man for All Seasons?
Yeah. So for anyone who has never seen the movie, or maybe doesn't even know a lot about the story of St. Thomas More, this movie is about St. Thomas More, who is an English martyr, who was martyred during the reign of King Henry VIII. During the English Reformation. St. Thomas More was a close friend of Henry, actually, was Lord Chancellor of England for forget how many years, but for a period. He was a lawyer by training and by education. and he was executed because he would not swear an oath that more or less stated that King Henry's marriage to Anne Boleyn was valid. And I think the movie does a good job of portraying all of that very well. I'm not, I don't know all the details of St. Thomas More, so I can't really give a comment on how 100% accurate the movie is, but I've been told it's pretty close.
Yeah, I love this whole period. I love learning about the English Reformation. I'm reading the Stripping of the Altars by Eamon Duffy right now, and it's just such an unbelievable time period because you really get this caricature of the Reformation that it's like from the ground up, where it's the peasants uprising because of the tyrannical church. But when the more you learn, the more you realize is this thing was a top down from the kings wanting to strip themselves of the church's authority and steal from the church, and then they force it down upon the peasants, and the peasant class was horrified by it. This was not some populist revolution that came through. It was a horrific time period. The other thing that maybe we should even do one time in the series, there's a 3-part series called Gunpowder on HBO. It's completely PG.
Guy Fawkes.
About Guy Fawkes,
okay.
and the gunpowder plot to I think it was King James, right?
I think so.
I think it's King James they're trying to overthrow, but it's about the persecution of Catholics in Anglican England, in post-Reformation England, and that series is phenomenal. So maybe we'll slip that in once we start getting thin on movie requests and stuff. We also want other people that are enjoying the series to give us movie requests. So the next one will be Miracle Man. We want to do Francesco. I have a list of movies that we could even go through, but
Thursday, and we're going to do this last Thursday of the month every month, right?
Yeah, last Thursday of every month. I'm hoping
everyone's got a whole month to watch it. I got a suggestion on Facebook from a lady named Dina suggesting I Confess, and that's one of my favorite movies as a priest because it's about the seal. Yeah, it's an Alfred Hitchcock movie. It's about the seal of confession, but there's some things in there that only a traditional priest would probably catch on that. And there's so much, well, there's just a lot in that movie. That's another one that I'm going to suggest.
Let me just see if I can pull up.
Beckett is one I would love to do. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah. So Catholic movies, we have the Passion's kind of obvious, so we'll go like For Greater Glory. Padre Pio, we're doing A Man for All Seasons. We're doing tonight. Francesco, The Mission, which is an interesting one because that has Robert. What's his name?
Is that Redford?
And
Robert De Niro,
Liam Neeson, and Jeremy Irons.
Liam Neeson. Father Damien of Malachi. There Be Dragons. The Black Robe. There's a lot of different ways we could go with this. There's tons of movies we could go to.
Hidden Life.
Well, that's honestly, if you think of a comparison of a saint from St. Thomas More, what's his name? Franz Jagerstetter.
Yeah,
I could never pronounce his last name, but he's another guy who refused to take an oath.
Yes,
was willing to lay down his life because he refused to take an oath.
That's a good connection between Moore and Jagerstetter.
It is, yeah.
Absolutely. Like that's all I could think of. What's funny is, so I was putting together Christmas presents because I don't want to do it on Christmas Eve tonight. So I watched the movie tonight. My son watched it with me. So he was putting something together and I was putting something together and we both watched it together and it gave me a chance to like explain to him the whole Reformation history. He thought it was really good too. So
cool.
What was the first scene that stuck out to you guys when you guys watched it?
When we watched A Man for All Seasons?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't watch movies a second or third time, but this is one of the ones I've seen about 20 times. And this was one of the ones where I was really shocked at what caught me this time. So the scenes that really got me this time are a little bit later in the movie, so I'm not going to chime in now, but I'll just say what got me this time was not what got me the last 10 or 15 or 20 times.
Really?
So for me, the first scene that stuck out was he's talking to Richie Rich,
who you, for anyone who doesn't know,
ends up becoming one of the maybe the two central villains in the movie, right? He's talking about he's offering him a teacher job, and the importance of not maybe the importance, but living a quiet life instead of living a big public life. And that was one of that kind of set the whole tone for me throughout the whole movie.
That's the first note I have. St. Thomas giving Richie Rich a small bribe, the silver cup, and telling him, Rich, be a teacher. You think you want to be at court. I mean, he doesn't say it like I'm saying it, obviously, but you think you want to be at court. You do not want the limelight. I'm telling you, go live a quiet life. Things that you're reaching for. And the fact that he took this small bribe, it's like they're going to offer you manners when you go there. He knew Rich would lose his soul.
Mm-hmm.
He knew that
it connects so well to the last thing he says to him, right? What does it profit a man to gain the world, but you lose your soul?
For whales.
For whales?
Yeah.
For whales. For whales is what he says.
It's like, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world if he loses his soul? But for whales?
For
Really?
any of the Welsh out there? No offense.
Yeah.
So I have that exact scene pulled up now. Do we want to watch it real quick? It's just under 2 minutes long.
You said there was a post. Oh, yes. Yes, I'll offer you a post with a house for
volume, Rob?
£50 a year.
Is that so low?
All right, that's what it is. People got to turn the volume up just to hear it.
Yeah, I don't know why that's so low, guys. Hold on, let me try it.
That's okay.
Okay, I can't change the volume in StreamYard for it. Okay, I'm gonna rewind it just a little then.
Oh, yes. I'll offer you a post.
Oh, subtitles too.
£7 and £50 a year. What post? At the new school. Teacher. Richard, no one's going to give you a place at court. Oh, Master Cromwell says he'll do something for me. Cromwell? Well, if you know Cromwell, you don't need my help.
Sir Thomas, if only you knew how much rather I'd your help than his.
Not to a place at court.
Rob, do we have to worry about copyrights if we don't talk over it at certain points or pause it?
Look.
We'll never be able to monetize the video.
I don't care about that. I'm not worried about them killing the stream.
They won't kill the stream, I don't believe.
Okay.
I am the gift of Averil Machin. And Averil Machin has a lawsuit in the Court of Requests. Italian silver. Take it. No joke.
Oh, thank you.
What will you do with it?
Sell it.
And buy what?
A decent gown.
But Richard, that's a little bribe. At court, they offer you all sorts of things: home manners, manor houses, coats of arms. A man should go where he won't be tempted. Why not be a teacher? You'd be a fine teacher, perhaps a great one.
If I was, who would know it?
You, your pupils, your friends, God. Not a bad public, that. Oh. And a quiet life.
There we go.
All right, especially because of kind of the garbage that's been going on the past couple of days about all the attention seeking stuff. And it really, when I watched that, it just kind of like struck me to my core. I'm like, oh man, like you really have to think about, especially like even for you, Father, right? Like you decide to do this public ministry on YouTube and stuff, and it makes you think a little bit. It does put a
I mean, when you look at it, like, what's so bad about being a teacher? Then you want, like, some of the stardom or whatever else. And St. Thomas More saw that if you can't handle a small temptation, you won't be able to handle a big temptation. And we usually think of temptation, I mean, 6th and 9th commandment sins. And obviously this movie is somewhat based on that because that was King Henry VIII's problem, right? Or maybe his was more based on which children he wanted. But but it's amazing. What really struck me watching it this time was loyalty of friendship, and what does it really take to sell out a friend? And for me, watching Man of All Seasons this time, I really had my eye on the Duke. He was a really interesting character to watch. Enoch. He was a really interesting character to watch develop because he actually had a good heart and was loyal. But like, I think everyone watching this live stream should say, what is your price? What is your price to sell out Christ? What is your price to sell out a friend? What is, and Richie Rich had a lower price than the Duke. Richie Rich had a very low price to sell out on. And we see that at the beginning, like his eyes just light up at one silver Italian cup, right? The Duke holds on quite a bit longer before he's just like, I mean, this the scene that I sent Rob, and Rob, maybe you can use the one I sent. I think if you use the one I sent, you might have a little bit better volume. But
Yep.
if you remember the Duke, his understanding is like, I understand having values, but don't go overboard on following Christ, because none of us can follow you. If you go overboard on following Christ, we're not going to go with you. We have to save our own necks. And that's a little bit of the scary thing when you read the gospel of really Jesus expects everything from us. I mean, what is Luke 14:26? I was meditating on this morning that if a man does not hate his father, mother, brothers, sisters, wife, and children, yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. And you really see that in this. What does it cost St. Thomas More when all these people, are they bad people? No, they're good people. That's the scary thing in this movie is he gets sold down the river by not just bad people, but even good people who can't keep up with the basics of the gospel. And they are really the basics. I mean, we're just talking about you can't have a dispensation to marry your second or third wife or mess with the Pope on a legalistic issue and stuff like that. You can only have one wife. That's not really advanced theology, but all of England went with
and
it.
It's not something that's not like I'm marrying the second woman. It's him doing it. If it's his
Mhm.
conscience, let him deal with
Yeah.
it. There's two major themes in this movie. One Father Nick's really was stressing, which was the theme of conscience, and Rob brought one up in the group text saying the difference between a martyr who rushes in to be martyred and the reluctant martyr, right? Like that was, Rob, when you texted that, I was like, holy cow, what an amazing insight, right? Because you're watching Thomas More not want to be more. I mean, he has a family, he has children, he does not want to be this thing. And
in a sense, he's even like playing like almost legalistic like mind games to try to avoid it, right?
Try to avoid it.
I would say not straying into anything necessarily like immoral, but it's almost on the
bends
line.
over backward. Remember what he says to Meg that night in the dark? What are the words?
This is the next
sign an oath.
The next quote I have. That's
Yeah.
why I'm leading up to this. The next quote I have written is what he says to Meg is, set your heart at rest. This is not the stuff of which martyrs are made. And it's like such a real moment in the movie where he's like, believe me, I don't want to die. Like, I'm telling you, I'm not a martyr. I'm telling you, if I can get through this thing with smiling, I'm going to.
And remember what I texted you guys before we hit record? I was talking about how I've been thinking about this for a few years. This is an totally original thought of mine. Well, I think I did think of it, but it's years old. John the Baptist lost his head for marriage as a martyr, but he went rushing into it. St. Thomas More was trying to bend over backwards looking for reasons he didn't have to excoriate the king, and he also lost his head for marriage. So it's really interesting to me that the non-reluctant martyr and the reluctant martyr both died the same death, beheading, and both of these were for marriage.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering why they didn't add St. John Fisher into this movie, because they really do run parallel, the two of them. They were in the tower together at one point. So I mean, I think I'm not 100% on that, but I'm pretty sure it was the two of them. I know but yeah, St. John Fisher also as a bishop would not take the oath, and he also lost his head. But what Enoch's saying, yeah, like St. Thomas More, we're gonna get to, we'll save that for when we get to Father Dave Nix's clip. Did you choose the clip of them when his family visits, or is that the one I picked?
I definitely have the clip on here, but I think
that was an overlapping one. The only one my friend Mike was able to get was the Duke scene near the river, but I also was hoping
that's a great scene too.
I was hoping we could look at the family. That was another scene that really struck me. I mean, the only time he cries is when he realizes at least briefly, his wife doesn't know why he's going to his death.
Yeah.
And he says something to the effect, "This is worse than the rack." And that's where, I often think,
his worry that she might end up hating him, I think, is what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to play
Yeah,
that scene
that's
because
such
that
a
scene
great-
is
it's a
unbelievably
grinding clip.
powerful.
So the next
Yeah, the
scene,
The next scene I have is the scene with Norfolk, which is the one Father Dave Nix wanted to play. But if you had something else before that,
probably 3 or 4 actually.
Yeah.
So going on the theme of doing what's right and not what's popular, the next one I have might not have jumped out to a lot of people, but I think it's actually probably more relevant today than it is then. And
can I just add something real quick? Because before we did this, before we were going to do this, Rob, well, listen to me. Rob texted me. He's like, "I'm not really looking forward to this series because I don't want to watch this movie."
It wasn't this. It wasn't this movie in particular.
Okay.
Generally speaking, am not a fan of movies, and
So
I can come up with like reasons that sound good, but in the end, what it comes down to is I had people that I grew up with that their whole life was about movies,
yeah,
and I didn't really like them, so I made my life not about movies.
I just think it's so funny because first, as soon as you finish watching it, you text me and you're like, "Okay, this was a good movie," and I'm like, "All right, yeah." The next scene I gotta say, he's like, "No, I got 3 or 4 more points I want to get to over here."
Okay, so the next scene, like I said, it's probably more relevant today. And most people probably wouldn't even think of this as necessarily standing up when they should, but here we go.
Will wants to marry me, Father.
Well, he can't marry you.
Sir Thomas, I'm called to the bar.
Oh, congratulations, Roper.
My family may not be at the palace, sir, but in the city.
There's nothing wrong with your family, Will. There's not much wrong with you. Except you seem to need a clock.
I can buy a clock, sir.
Roper, the answer is no, and will be no as long as you're a heretic.
Now, that's the word I don't like, Sir Thomas.
It's not a likable word. It's not a likable thing.
The church is heretical. Dr. Luther has proved that to my satisfaction.
Luther is an excommunicate.
From a heretic church. Church. It's a shop. Salvation by the shilling and divorces.
Will, no.
What I know, I'll say.
You've no sense of the place.
There's no sense of the time.
And now listen, Will. 2 years ago, you were a passionate churchman. Now you're a passionate Lutheran. We must just pray that when your head's finished turning, your face is to the front again.
There we go.
Yeah, that's great, man. And you see that it's from the time period where revolution is just in the air, right? And the possible future son-in-law is reading Luther's writings, and it's wait, my wife's texting me. Go ahead, if you guys got something.
I like this scene because so many people today they're willing to go along, go to marriages and weddings that they maybe shouldn't, approve of things because their child's in love, but not, they don't maybe aren't the most concerned about their soul.
What a brilliant insight, right?
So it can be very unpopular to oppose the wedding of a family member, but yet I think St. Thomas does a good job here showing why that's important. And later Will does come back to the church, and probably largely because of St. Thomas. So
I like him yawning because it shows how boring heresy is.
Yeah.
You ever notice that? Heresy's flashy at first, but then they all say the same thing over and over without a lot of depth to it all.
Yeah,
heresy is so boring, and
it's nothing new under the sun. It's the same stuff year after year.
Like Father Ripperger was on Taylor Marshall's show a week or two ago, and Taylor said, "What's your favorite part about the Catholic faith?" And this isn't an exact quote, but he basically said how integrated and organic everything is. And I thought that was a great answer, because when you really start to study like how St. John of the Cross's ascetical theology perfectly gels with St. Thomas Aquinas's dogmatic theology, and how that works out perfectly in the traditional Latin Mass, and how even though there's differences in the Gospels, they all really gel together entirely, even historically. And then some of the things that Father Ripperger is learning from these demons in exorcisms, including like, I mean, it all just lines up when he gets the demons to tell the truth. I know that's a complex and even controversial topic, but it all really lines up with St. Thomas Aquinas' whole view of the entire universe and the hierarchy of the angels and the hierarchy of families and everything, and just this really how traditional Catholicism is this one organic, united entity, and heretics, they stick to their little wheelhouse of like, you see the stuff at America Magazine. It's always the same boring, repeating. Really, it goes back to the 1960s and 70s, the same stuff we hear, and it's very, very boring.
Yeah. What I've been really focusing on with my son, even tonight we were talking about it, just showing him how much the church has shaped everything around us. I mean, people really take it for granted nowadays, the idea of a weekend. It's this doesn't exist before the church forms culture. You had your nobility and you had slaves, and that was it. And those slaves worked round the clock, 24 hours, well, maybe not 20, but they let them sleep, but 7 days a week. There were no time off, anything. But when the church comes in, the church actually says, no, they get the Sabbath off. Oh, and now we're throwing in these holy days. And it gives the servants and the peasants an opportunity to actually have a fulfilling life with family, where they could spend time with their children, and you get this beautiful culture that gets molded out of it that never would have happened without the Catholic Church. And people today completely take that for granted. They really do not. Even the atheists, they think the world would have ended up where it was, where we are today, without the influence of the church pushing people in power to take care of the poor, to take care of the needy, and to take care of those who are working for them.
And because England's been mostly Protestant for 500 years, I think we as Americans think of England as Protestant, but they were Catholic for 1,000 years before the 500 that we're at. So really,
St. Augustine of Canterbury, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, they were Catholic longer than they were Protestant, even up to today. 1,000 years as Catholics, 500 years as Protestants. Now they're just post-Christian entirely. But anything of civilization, anything of even being polite in English society, well, maybe not everything, but even English society is entirely built on Catholicism. And most people don't realize that.
Yeah.
Our system of law, which comes from English common law, comes from like the Magna Carta, which is a Catholic document.
Yeah.
And it also comes from canon lawyers in the church trying to, so it would be like, I actually just had this conversation with my son. It's so funny, where it would be, okay, if somebody stole a loaf of bread, you're not going to cut their hand off. They're going to get this punishment instead. They actually worked out the severity of different punishments and stuff, because if you're in the ancient world and you steal something, you're either getting killed, hanged, or your hand cut off. Like, those are the three things that would happen to you, where the church said, no, okay, we'll come up with more appropriate punishments for the severity of the crime, which is why you get different term sentences for different crimes. Now that all comes through the church.
As a matter of fact, after the Reformation, the English Reformation specifically, is when English monarchs really start to screw with English common law, and you get periods of time where people are being executed for every little thing. I mean, people are like, for instance, during the reign of Queen Elizabeth, I think it was on average during her reign, almost 800 people a year were executed just for religious reasons. But you had people being executed for, like you said, stealing a loaf of bread. Whereas prior to that, under Catholicism, justice was actually just.
So one thing I really want to say real quick, because Enoch says, we're only 30 minutes in, and this is my favorite AB episode. My love for movies meets good commentary. It's not just the commentary on the movie. What I'm loving is, this is the reason I really wanted to do this series, is because we're not just going to talk about the movie. We're going to talk about how the thing in the movie applies to life, applies to the world that we're in, applies to church history, things like that. I just thought it would be an amazing way to have good Catholic conversations. I'm so glad for all the next thought of this series.
Yeah, and it really does. I know we kind of frame this as something that we're not going to apply to modern problems in the church. And I know I told you guys ahead of time why I don't want to get into papacy versus king in this. I'd rather stick with conscience and loyalty and friendship versus going against it. Most of the listeners out there can guess why. But I will say that you look at someone like Bishop Strickland or Cardinal Burke, and again, without getting into the complexities of St. Thomas More and the papacy and that type of stuff, I can say that there had to be a moment when a Bishop Strickland was on his knees saying, am I going to follow my conscience or go with the majority of the bishops on something like this? And this is what we really see in this movie, the loneliness of St. Thomas More at times. I mean, sometimes we look at the saints and we think, like, you look at Saint Padre Pio, and, you know, I don't think anybody thinks the stigmata was easy, but sometimes it feels easier than your life. But he always said it was the shame that was even more painful. The shame of his life was more painful than the stigmata. And like, one of the reasons I love this movie is you see how charitable and down to earth and commonsensical St. Thomas More is, but you also see his weakness as a man at the end when he cracks and he starts to cry when his wife doesn't understand what he's up to. It shows he also has earthly affection still. And that's where, you know, I always think of, like, I read the stories of all these brothers and priests who were all these martyrs. And me as a priest, of course, I saw celibacy as the higher pathway. When I left this girl, entered seminary, all that stuff. We talked about that on our thing. And the Council of Trent holds that celibacy is higher. But this movie really opened my eyes to see, with all of these current day red martyrs in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, China, in some sense, the family martyrs are giving up a lot more than us celibate martyrs. I mean, I'm not a martyr, but like the celibate martyrs, obviously there's more of them, of course. But when you look at what these family people have to give up, that's, I think, what really struck me about this time is, yeah, John the Baptist, he was preaching against Herod and the Pharisees and all that stuff, and they chopped his head off, and he was ready to go to heaven. But St. Thomas More had earthly loves in a way that John the Baptist didn't. Now, that's the advantage of the mobility of celibacy. We are detached. But what really struck me was how hard it is for the red martyr who has a family to really put Christ first. In some sense, it's harder for him than the celibate. And that's happening in China today. It's happening in Saudi Arabia. It's happening in Egypt. But this movie really shows that.
Well, my biggest takeaway from this movie is Thomas More wasn't willing to tell a lie when he probably could have went to confession after and got absolution. And you think about how many people use the confession as a revolving door. Or I missed mass on Sunday. I mean, I don't know if, I mean, I told you both that. I told Rob that in private, and I told Father that in private. But I was coming home from upstate. We went away for Thanksgiving. I came home and I was exhausted when I got home, but I could have made it. And that's a mortal sin. And you just think this man could have just told a little white lie and not meant it, and maybe gotten absolution afterward. And the reality to which he perceives what one sin can do to your soul. And I think that I'm just so desensitized to what a sin can do to my soul. I think he just had such a better grasp on it.
And his daughter was begging him and trying to give him ways to rationalize it and justify it, that is hard to say no to when your life's at stake. I mean, how do you say no to your, how do you tell your daughter no? Like,
yeah, when we get to the family scene, we're going to have that really is the climax. To me, that's the climax of the movie. So I think we should probably save our banter for that when we get there. But yeah, it's just, it just really struck me how serious he took the idea of telling a lie. And I have the quote, like one of the quotes that he says, what is an oath but words we say to God, right? Like that's what an oath is. It's if you're taking an oath, you are making an oath to God. It's the same thing with vows. People that break their wedding vows. And
if I remember right, he says that right after his daughter tries to convince him, like, what is an oath but words you say out loud? It's not it's not what you believe in your conscience, right?
Right.
And then he replies with that.
And do you remember we see this in the very opening scene of the movie, or one of the very first scenes? Cardinal Wolsey says, "Why did you oppose me?" And St. Thomas More, he has this St. Therese like childlike attitude where he goes, "I thought your grace was wrong."
Yeah. He's like, "What?"
And then you were wrong. Thomas, we're alone. I give you my word. There's no one here. I didn't suppose there was, your grace.
Wolsey goes, well, you were a fool to do so. And St. Thomas goes, then it is good there is only one fool in the room.
Yeah.
This
Well,
this movie
this
is so
idea-
quotable.
Oh yeah, and this idea of like just one little lie. This touches on this moral heresy of consequentialism. That remember when Wolsey explodes on him for not signing, and he tries to explain. He says, "Let the dynasty die with hate, and we'll have dynastic wars again." So in other words, if you can't in your little like scrupulous conscience allow adultery, you're going to be the one who's guilty for all this violence of dynastic wars.
Mm.
And so this is human reasoning to overturn God's law. But Thomas More's canonized and Wolsey's not. So what does the church teach about that? You know,
Yeah.
that's the moral heresy of
Yeah,
consequentialism.
Wolsey
Working
was a
backwards.
tortured man. I mean, I really think Wolsey. I mean, he was on his deathbed. The final thing he says is, "If I had served God as well as I served my king, he would not have left me to
half
die."
as well. Half as well as I
Yeah,
served my
half
king.
as well. He was a tortured man. You know, I think on his,
Did that happen in real life? Do you guys know? Did he have somewhat of a conversion, or like? Well, I guess that'd be a full conversion.
I was under the impression there was a rumor that he took his own life, and that his death isn't like when you look it up on Wikipedia, it says that he died of natural causes. But I always
Okay.
thought there was some speculation that he took his own life because he knew what was coming. He was going to be sent to the tower, and
I think I've heard that quote in other places besides the movie, though. That if I could be wrong, maybe that's where it originates. I don't know, but
Rob, what was the next scene you had?
So the next one is short. It's only about 12 seconds, but it's actually one of my favorites in the movie, and it's him talking to the Duke of Norfolk. Not the scene you gave me, Father. It's a little bit before that, but here it is.
And will you forfeit all you have, which includes the respect of your country, for a belief?
Because what matters is that I believe it, or rather know. Not that I believe it, but that I believe it. I trust I make myself obscure.
Nice and short, but I think there's so much right there that he's willing to give up the respect of the whole country, because he has it at that point. He's the Lord Chancellor. He's willing to give the respect of everyone for simply because he believes something, like he really believes it.
Yeah.
So funny, like we live these lives, they go by like this. Who's the one we remember? You remember St. Thomas More, the man who put his foot down. And
there's been dozens of Dukes of Norfolk. Does anyone know the name of this one? Not off the top of their head.
Nope. Yeah.
Since we're talking about like popularity versus conscience, I think Father, how do we know when we're following our conscience in a proper way versus, because the argument of conscience is one that's brought up by left casts all the time, right? They more or less can justify anything by saying, well, I'm following my conscience. So how do we know when we're following our conscience in a way that pleases God?
So my thesis right before I was ordained, you have to write like a 50 or 100 page thesis before you're ordained. Rob didn't know this. It sounded like I set him up to ask that question, but he didn't know.
No, I did not know that.
My thesis was on conscience. And what happened in the 1980s is a lot of married couples went to priests and they said, can we use contraception? And the priest would say, what does your conscience tell you? And they would say that it's okay. Well, one of the only lines these priests in the 1980s knew from St. Thomas Aquinas was that you must always follow an erroneous conscience. Now, Thomas Aquinas didn't mean it like that. We won't get into what he meant, but it's totally taken out of context when these 1980s priests said you always have to follow an erroneous conscience. So what happened in the 70s and 80s is conscience became the launching point for any sin that you wanted. Now, what I find fascinating, I'm going to just say this before I answer your question. What has happened in the church in the last 10 years is the opposite. This is a really rapid change because in the 70s and 80s, the leftists were using conscience as their reason not to do things, where now with what has happened in the Catholic Church in the last 10 years, it's often conservatives who are saying this, like, I, in my own conscience, they're using, the 70s term, I, in my own conscience, can't give out Holy Communion to people in their hands anymore. That's something I had to say. Isn't conscience the big wheelhouse everyone has to respect? Well, all of a sudden, when conservatives or traditionalists pull it out, it's not so attractive.
Yeah.
But that's something I had to say in my priesthood. I, in my conscience, can't give Holy Communion out to people in their hands. Well, I thought everyone respected conscience as like somehow above divine revelation, but it's not.
Or during 2020.
Yeah, I can't in my conscience take the jab.
You cannot tell me, not even just the priests who were still out there giving extreme unction, the priests who were still out there at when their bishops told them not to and still went and did those things. I had a priest write me an exemption letter when his bishop told him not to. Those are the things that you can't those are St. Thomas More moments.
Yeah, and so to answer your question, Rob,
Mhm.
it's when a conscience is formed according to divine revelation and natural law, not opinion polls. That's the big key to keep in mind. Is your conscience formed according to natural law, which is written on the human heart, even before you get to what Jews and Christians believe from Old and New Testament? Natural law, Romans chapter 1 goes into this. There's certain sins that are unnatural that you don't even have to have a Bible to know it's wrong because it's already in natural law. And then divine revelation, which is the Bible and the magisterium. So anybody who says I'm following my conscience, that only works if it's a well-formed conscience. But some people who say well-formed conscience, they don't realize that that's not just what you think is well-formed. That has to be formed objectively according to natural law and divine revelation. And that's what St. Thomas More does in this, is he sidelines all of the opinion polls for the fact that Jesus said, if you marry a divorced person, you've committed adultery. And he shields his conscience in the papacy too. So in all of that, conscience only works to get you to heaven if it's well formed according to natural law and divine revelation.
Okay, so at the time, the common people supported Catherine of Aragon and hated Anne Boleyn. Today, people see Anne Boleyn as the heroine and martyr. The one thing that they don't touch Catherine in this movie much, but
Not in it.
there should be a cult around Catherine of Aragon. That woman suffered humiliation and never once deterred from, no, I am his rightful wife. She was humiliated on a level that you cannot imagine.
She was devoted to him to the day she died.
Till the day she died. And there should be a cult around her. She should be Saint Catherine of Aragon. I really think so. It's sad that people don't really know the story of what she went through and what she endured.
And Anthony, I'm glad you mentioned 2020. That's a perfect example of everything in A Man for All Seasons, that you can get all this gaslighting, like you're going to kill grandma. All the people are saying this, and this. But really, what is your price? What were the priests' price to keep their churches open? What were the prices in the hearts of the physicians who wouldn't give out that pokey poke? This movie as a whole is entirely a question of what is your cost to sell out? And Thomas More had a very high price. And we saw priests and physicians and lawyers and even just firefighters and cops. There's a famous ones there out in New York City who wouldn't follow the crowd, got made fun of, got gaslit, and now everybody knows they were right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 2020, man. That was the beginning of this channel, because I tried to encourage others to make a stand, because I was willing to walk away from my job over this whole thing. There was nothing they could have done to get me to take it. And I was really like, okay, what am I going to do? And thank God it didn't work out that way.
And see, it really did create white martyrs today on this issue of conscience. Will you pull up that last comment from Mary Catherine, Rob? She said, my priest snuck into a hospital and twice into a nursing home to give my parents last rites. Sorry, I can't tell you who he is. I got fired for not taking it, lost almost everything, including my home.
Same thing with this comment here. You fired for the healthcare worker mandate in New York.
Wow.
Yeah, but you'll be able to face God one day. I knew when that whole thing happened that there was something in me that just said, if you do this, what's coming next, you will never be able to endure. That was really what this was about. That was about for me. It was, if you don't make a stand now, the next thing that's coming, and there will be something coming, that you'll desensitize yourself to the point where you'll just give in to the next thing right away.
Ooh, speaking
And
of desensitization, I don't know if you can get to the timestamp since we didn't give you a timestamp, Rob, but one of my favorite scenes, I should have given you this as a clip. Do you remember when Cromwell's talking to Rich, and Rich he's embarrassed that he basically turned over St. Thomas More for the slightest imperfection, and he can barely drink his beer, and then Cromwell notices that Rich's conscience is still bugging him, and he's like, what is it? He's like, just I seem to have lost my innocence. And he says something along the lines, well, you lost it long ago.
It'll be a lot easier next time.
It's going to be a lot easier next time, you know? And that's another, the development of sin through this movie is another fascinating thing. You know, like, how did you know in 2020, if you just take that, you're going to fall to bigger things? If Richie Rich takes that cup, he might fall to bigger things. And then it's a very small betrayal of Thomas More. And then in the end, he's perjuring himself in court against him.
Yep. I actually have it pulled up right now if we want to watch it.
Oh, I'd love to see it. Yeah.
God, let's watch it.
Rich, come in, come in. Taken you long enough to get here?
Have I kept you waiting?
Months. Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you know the news?
What news?
Sir Thomas Paget is retiring. And I succeed him.
Secretary to the council?
Mm.
You?
It's surprising, isn't it?
Oh, no. I mean, one sees... That's logical.
Sit down, Rich. No ceremony, no courtship, as His Majesty would say. Yes. You see how I trust you?
Oh, I'd never repeat or report a thing like that.
What kind of thing would you repeat or report?
Well, nothing said in friendship.
Do you believe that?
Well, yes.
No, seriously.
Well, yes.
Rich. Seriously.
It would depend what I was offered.
Don't say it just to please me.
It's true, it would depend what I was offered.
Well, there is another post vacant. Collector of revenues for York.
Is it in your gift?
Effectively.
What must I do for it?
Rich, I know a man who wants to change his woman. Normally a matter of small importance, but in this case, it's our liege lord Henry, the 8th of that name, which is a quaint way of saying that if he wants to change his woman, he will. And our job as administrators is to minimize the inconvenience which this is going to cause. That's our only job, Rich, to minimize the inconvenience of things. A harmless occupation, you would say. Oh, but no, we administrators are not like Rich. We are not popular. I say we on the assumption you'll accept the post at York I've offered you.
Yes. Yes.
It's a bad sign when people are depressed by their own good fortune.
I'm not depressed.
You look depressed.
I was lamenting. I've lost my innocence.
Some time ago, have you only just noticed?
Well, you didn't get to the point where
You want to
Keep it gets easier.
You go like another 10 seconds.
Your friend, our present Lord Chancellor, now there's an innocent man.
The odd thing is, he is.
Yes, I say he is. Unhappily, he's got his innocence tangled up in this proposition that you can't change your woman without a divorce. And you can't get a divorce unless the Pope says so. And from this quite meaningless circumstance, I foresee a certain measure of
inconvenience.
Just so. This goblet he gave you, how much was it worth? Oh, come along, Rich. He gave you a silver goblet. How much did you get for it?
50 shillings.
It was a gift, wasn't it, from a litigant, a woman?
Yes.
Which court, Chancery? Oh, now don't get drunk. Which court was the litigant's case?
Court of Requests.
There. That wasn't too painful, was it?
No.
No. And you'll find it easier next time.
There you go. Yeah. So it's I've often told people, if you think about a hitman, the first time he probably takes a life, it rips his heart out. But as time goes on, you do a few more, they get easier and easier before you know it, the guy could just take a life, no problem.
Mhm.
That is how our consciences work. That's why it's important not to dull yourself to small sins, because those small sins add up and they will lead to bigger sins. If you can't be trusted in small matters, you can't be trusted in big matters.
The next scene I have is a little humorous, and it shows that Alice is a woman that Anthony would approve of. Alice is St. Thomas's wife.
Alice, shall I teach you to read?
No, by God.
That's literally all I wanted to show.
Who the heck wants an informed woman? I always tell you guys. I'll let these broads read. Nothing good comes of it.
You know, I would have to say though, for all the making fun of women you guys did, your makeup session was like 2 women.
Oh yeah, I know. I agree. A couple of broads making up.
It's like that Mike Tyson meme. Now Kith. Now Kith the makeup. Okay, I got one more clip before we get to the clip you wanted to go over, Father. This one is St. Thomas explaining to his wife how there is safety in silence in his case.
I love this clip.
That's all. The king is made by Act of Parliament supreme head of the church in England. This English church will first divorce him from the Queen, then marry him to Lady Anne. But on any of these matters, have you heard me make a statement?
No. And if I'm to lose my rank and fall to housekeeping, I want to know the reason. So make a statement now.
No, Alice, it's a point of law. Accept it from me, Alice, that in silence is my safety under the law. And my silence must be absolute. It must extend to you.
In short, you don't trust me.
Look. I'm the Lord Chief Justice. I'm Cromwell. I'm the keeper of the tower. I take your hand. I clamp it on the Bible, on the blessed cross, and I say, woman, has your husband made a statement on these matters? Now, on peril of your soul, remember, what is your answer?
No.
And so it must remain.
Yeah, you can see a lot of the movie is him really getting down to the importance of laws and things like that. Because when he has the conversation with his son-in-law later on, talking about the devil, would you give the devil the right of law? And he says, yeah, I would give him the right of law. But he has such a good quote there. If we get to that scene,
I did not write that one down, but I'm sure we can find it.
Yeah, see if you can find it, because it's a really good scene where he's talking about the law, and then if the devil.
I always get this quote wrong too. It's so hard to quote.
It's such a good quote.
It's memorable, but it's very hard to remember.
So I believe the next scene chronologically, Father, is the one you wanted to discuss. I do. I have not watched the clip that was uploaded. I think this is one of the maybe 2 points in the movie where GD is used.
Yeah, the one Mike sent you, it's out of there. That's why I hope you can hear it.
Did you want to touch on that at all? If it's like the morality of us watching a movie that might include something like that?
I mean, I don't think we should watch a movie with JC in it. Maybe we shouldn't have suggested one with GD, but I mean, I always use.
I didn't even catch it when I watched it.
It's in there twice. I think it's in there twice. I use the Focus on the Family website called Plugged In, and the first thing I go to is, so you pick a movie, and then it lists sex, violence, drugs, all this stuff. And the first I go to is language to see if it misuses our Lord's holy name, as in our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I want to see if it misuses that. yeah, maybe we shouldn't be promoting a movie with GD in it, but that's the extent of my content. Maybe there are more sensitive consciences that are going to get to heaven quicker, but definitely we need to avoid any movie that says JC. But the clip I sent you refrains from GD also, if you can find that, Rob.
Okay, I do have that.
Okay.
I think the way I'm going to put this one up, I might have to take us off the screen for it.
Yeah,
Let's
you know what? Just pause it every 30. I mean, I don't want to say pause 4 times. Maybe just pause it every 30 seconds because I have a lot to say on this clip.
Yeah, let's do that.
Is that okay?
I think this will let me pause it this way. We'll find out. If not, I'll find it in the actual movie I have up. So let's try it.
Okay, sounds good.
Thomas, you're dangerous to know.
Then don't know me.
Actually, Father, so when I have this up, I won't be able to like hear you say pause.
No,
I'll be able to.
go 30
I'll be able to.
seconds.
Okay, 30 seconds.
Just at 30 seconds. Pause it.
Yeah, just go 30 seconds.
Thomas, you're dangerous to know.
Then don't know me.
I do know you.
I mean as a friend.
I am your friend. I wish I wasn't, but I am.
What's to be done then?
Give in?
I can't give in, Howard. Our friendship's more mutable than that.
Oh, the one fixed point in a world of turning friendship is that Thomas More will not give in.
To me it has to be, for that's myself. Affection goes as deep in me as you, I think. But only God is love right through, Howard. And that's my self.
And who are you?
It doesn't let me pause it. It would start over. So discuss that, and I'll find the rest of it here.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, Rob, earlier you asked what is the central part of conscience, and I think one of the things I see in modernist Catholicism that is leading a lot of people to hell in moral theology is going to be big words, but I'm going to explain it. It's the inversion of the 2 great commandments. Second great commandment is love your neighbor as yourself. The first great commandment is love God above all things. And maybe this isn't just modernism. We all have excuses why we're going to put others ahead of following the law of God. But that itself is sin. And that's what you see that's the difference right there between the Duke and the saint, is the Duke actually respects friendship, but he holds this whole idea, come with us for fellowship's sake. That's a different scene, where St. Thomas More is putting the law of God ahead of friendship. His friendship with Christ comes ahead of his friendship with the Duke. And that is exactly what makes a saint. And the amazing thing is that what I love about this movie is St. Thomas More isn't such a detached saint that it's easy for him. You see it rip his heart out that he has to what's amazing about the next scene with the Duke, I guess I'm going to give a little preview of that, is he realizes the Duke isn't going to put Christ ahead of him. So to save the Duke's life, he makes the Duke end the friendship with him in this next scene instead of him ending it himself. So maybe you can show that.
And who are you? A lawyer and a lawyer's son. We're supposed to be the proud ones, the arrogant ones. We've all given in. Why must you stand out? God damn it, man, it's
Sorry.
disproportionate.
You break my heart.
No one is safe, Howard. You have a son. We'll end our friendship now.
For friendship's sake?
Yes.
Daft.
That's about 30 seconds.
Real quick, whenever I hear somebody take the Lord's name in vain, I always make a point to address it and say, it's the easiest commandment to not break. It's just words. It's the easiest commandment to just. So if you're in the habit of taking the Lord's name in vain, just stop it. I mean, it's the easiest.
You say that to other construction workers out there?
I've gotten thrown out of people's houses for it.
Have you?
Yeah, I'm not kidding.
So
That's
you.
awesome.
I got thrown
I
out.
love it.
I was at a party and the host of the party used it in front of me, and I said, it's such an easy commandment not to break. My kids are around. Is there any way you cannot use it? And this person lost their mind on me. Dare you tell me what I could say in my house? They were drinking, and I said, all right, I'm clearly not welcome here. I said, kids, let's get out of here. They didn't throw me out. I chose to leave because that person got so hostile towards me because I had said this. And when I was hoping that like they would apologize later on for acting that way, but I never got an apology.
See, I'm not making you a saint, Anthony, but that's the stuff saints are made of. Because remember what I just got done saying? To put God's law ahead of human friendship. That's exactly what you did. And it wasn't like you were a jerk about it. I mean, that's the nicest way to say that. And even the nice way of making that correction wasn't good enough. And so there's something of St. Thomas More in you that you were able to say that, because it cost you, just like it cost him his friendship with the Duke. And that's, I think, what we have to get used to being called is extremist. If you caught the code for extremist in the last clip, it was disproportionate. It's a little more advanced maybe in the 1960s, but it's the word we get called, extremists. But he calls them disproportionate. And like, that's the question. Are your listeners, are our friends in the traditional Catholic world, are we willing to be called names, extremists, fanaticals, and fundamentalists, disproportionate? Not that we want to be weirdos for Christ or be obnoxious for the sake of being obnoxious, but we have to be ready that if we put the law of God before our human friendships, we're going to get called names like that, or get kicked out of parties for very nicely saying, please don't take our Lord's name.
Yeah, I wasn't obnoxious about it at all. I just my kids were right there. Like, don't use that, it's funny. Like, if they said the F word, I would have never said anything.
Me too. I let that slide too.
Yeah, if they use foul language, but my kids know in this house, if that ever comes out, there's going to be, I mean, they've never heard it in my home. Never once. Beautiful. And they never will.
I love it.
Okay, we got about maybe 2 or 3 more 30-second parts of this. So I'll throw this back up.
Norfolk, you're a fool.
You can't place a quarrel, Thomas. You haven't the style.
Hear me out. You and your class have given in, as you rightly call it, because the religion of this country means nothing to you one way or the other.
Well, that's a foolish saying for a start. The nobility of England.
The nobility of England, my lord, would have snored through the Sermon on the Mount. But you labor like scholars over a bulldog's pedigree.
An artificial quarrel's not a quarrel.
We've had a quarrel since the day we met. Our friendship was mere sloth.
Oh, you can be cruel when you've a mind to be, but I've always known that.
What do you value in your bulldogs? Gripping, is it not? Hey?
Yes.
It's their nature.
Yes.
It's why you breed them.
Yes.
But so with men. I will not give in because I oppose it. Not my pride, not my spleen, nor any other of my appetites, but I do. I
like how he once again brings home the his conscience part.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah, this isn't a one-time thing or a passionate thing or a little pet project of his, or what he calls his spleen or his passions. It's the very center of his will and responsibility, that he knows what he has to do.
Yeah, it's great. I even this, what did he say? The scholars of England, the scholars of England would have snored to the nobility. The nobility of England would have snored to the Sermon on the Mount. You can see also he's trying to let Norfolk off the hook a little bit, and he doesn't want Norfolk to have the guilt of allowing this to happen to his friends. So he's purposely causing this argument so that don't worry. I know you're doing everything you're doing for me. This isn't on you. This is me.
That's right.
And this is a good point here. The movie and the epilogue of the movie does touch on the fact that that the Duke here was encouraged by St. Thomas, was condemned to die, was literally in the tower about to be executed, but King Henry died.
Do you know why? Because I know they said that in the epilogue, but I never knew why.
Obviously he had taken the oath.
Yeah,
of course. So I don't know the specific reason.
Henry kind of just went on a spree of beheadings. I mean, Cromwell. The funny thing is
Cromwell loses it,
pushing this whole thing this whole time, and 5 years later he gets his head taken off. And I wasn't going to watch this long, but this is one of my favorite movies. It's nice to hear it discussed in a way rather than a typical movie. Oh, that's so awesome, Ollie.
Okay, so I just put you guys under a prohibition against. I just said I didn't want to discuss current things in the Vatican, so I'm allowed to break it because it's my rule. Look at someone like Cardinal Gonsfine, who has been not just rumored. I mean, it's on his Wikipedia page, if I remember correctly, that he had this idea of bifurcating the papacy into a contemplative pope and an active pope. He was behind a lot of what happened in 2012 and 2013. Now he's out, right? there is no loyalty among thieves.
Yeah.
And anyone who says, you look at that in the 16th century, how the epilogue in the movie ends, how they all cannibalize each other. Oh, that's because they were mean in the Middle Ages. No, they're still doing it today.
Revolutions always cannibalize.
That's right. Revolutions always cannibalize their own, and Cardinal or Archbishop Gonsfine is a perfect example.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that poor guy. He's getting he's not even allowed to give talks anywhere.
He was behind the scenes flipping all the switches, and now he's like, what, looking for a job?
Yeah.
No. Okay,
I'm
we'll
not
finish
gloating.
this.
I don't mean to gloat. I just mean, like, when you join the bad guys team and you're one of the bad guys, you have the only loyalty that any of us can really hang our hat on in anything is Christ and those who are truly accelerating to follow Christ. And that was what's so exciting about 2020 we really did learn real friendships and fake friendships in 20 and 21 based on what got shaken out in church and state.
Yeah. This is also such an interesting period in history. So for anybody that doesn't know, because I just assume everybody knows this, but Henry never has a son. He goes through, I think he has one, but the little boy dies. He goes through 7
Catherine
wives.
gave him a few sons.
But they died early on, right? But he also has a son with maybe Anne Boleyn or one of the other wives, and he dies young too. But he goes through 7 wives and never is able to have a boy succeed him. So it ends up that Catherine's daughter winds up succeeding him.
Wow.
Now, Catherine's daughter is Mary Tudor. Now, Mary, if you've ever heard the story of Bloody Mary, is that's Mary Tudor, because Mary tries to institute Catholicism back in England.
And the whole bloody part is just pure calumny.
Pure, right. But
100%.
it's also Protestant, nonsense after. But so Catherine also can't produce a male heir. So it goes to Elizabeth, who's Anne Boleyn's daughter, and Anne Boleyn switches everything back to Protestantism. And it's such a wild time in England to be alive during that time.
I think he did
horrifying.
He did have a son, dude.
Yeah, but something happened to him, right?
Well, he died as king.
He died as king very young.
Yeah, and I think maybe his early teens.
That's what I mean. Like so it winds up going to Mary.
Henry VIII, was it more about libido or male progeny?
I think both, but I don't think it was.
I think it was a lot pride. I think when he got told no, that he couldn't have his, I don't think it was male progeny. I think it was definitely libido with his obsession with Anne Boleyn. But when he was told no, because he could have just kept her as a concubine, but when he was told no by the Pope, I think
interesting.
Sent him down. You're going to tell me what to do?
I think the sin of I think it's kind of both end. I think he wanted to get with Anne for the male progeny, but you're right, Anthony. There had been, throughout European Catholicism prior to this, there was plenty of times where a king could have a child with an illegitimate child, and then but yet make them legitimate. That was done.
Legitimize the child. Yeah.
You're right.
We were having the silly conversation of co-sleeping, but these kings would have their own chambers. The queen would have her own chambers, and the king would have his mistress come and visit him in the chambers. Some of the kings were saintly kings. King Louis IX obviously didn't do that, but it was very common for kings to have concubines. It went to Edward, then Mary, then Elizabeth. Right?
Is that legend true that Henry VIII on his deathbed called for a priest, but they couldn't find one because he'd killed them all?
I don't know.
Sounds like a good anecdote, but I don't think it's actually true.
Yeah, maybe someone in the live chat knows. I've heard it several times, so it's either like a very famous legend that's not true, or it's true.
One thing I've learned through a year and a half of doing this now is no matter how much I might know something, someone in the live chat knows the subject better than me.
Yeah, it's like they should be doing the show. I always think that. I look at the comments on Facebook and YouTube, and it's like I'm teaching people who know more than me. It's a little embarrassing.
Wait, I want to see what. She hates when I say Anne Boleyn. Anne Boleyn.
Yeah, it's Anne Boleyn.
Dude, it's been grading on me all episode.
I think it's Anne Boleyn.
Yeah. Molly says Anne Boleyn. I say Anne Boleyn. It's both BOLEEN or
just
EYN.
Anne Boleyn.
Dude, you don't know English, so don't try.
I'm calling her Anne Boleyn. I don't care.
Anne Boleyn.
Are we going to see
I'm a
the?
dumb New Yorker. What do you people want from me?
Let's see the jail, the family jail scene, or do we
Okay.
have?
I
Oh,
have.
you know what's another great one? I don't know if people are getting bored yet. People leaving the chat, but another one of my favorites is, "Will you join us for fellowship?"
That's the next one I have.
I'd
And
love to
actually,
see
we
that
have
one.
more people
Thank you,
joining the
Mrs.
chat the
B.
longer this goes. So
How is it Anne Boleyn when it's Boleyn?
Because I think that's Old English. I don't know. I'm just making that up. I don't know what I'm saying.
why
It's
do they pronounce it
Boleyn.
Norfolk when it's Norfolk? I don't know. They're English.
It's you Americans are saying Boleyn.
Sometimes
Did
it's
you
just
kick
best to throw
Anthony
him
off?
out.
Did
Yeah,
you kick him off?
he's used to it. He loves it. It's his
I love
favorite bit.
activating
I mean, look at
people.
Worcestershire sauce. I mean, I there's
Ooh.
so many hidden letters in there. You just
Yeah,
have to
right.
have
That is a tough one. Worcestershire sauce.
Worcestershire sauce.
And honestly, all it is like ketchup mixed with liquid smoke. That's all.
Is that all it
That's
is?
all it is.
Let me ask you something. Did we pass the part where he says when a man takes an oath, he holds his own self in his hands like water, and if he opens his fingers, then he needn't hope to find himself again. Did we get past that? I don't remember when that happens. I don't know if it was when he was talking to his daughter, but it's such a great quote. When a man takes an oath, he holds his own self in his hands like water, and if he opens his fingers, he needn't hope to find himself ever again. So he's saying if you take an oath and you allow yourself to lie in an oath, you have lost yourself. Not just your soul, you are gone. You're not, it's another way of saying your word is your bond. What more?
Yeah.
Who are you if you're not a man of your word?
Isn't in Dante's Inferno one of the very lowest levels, those who perjured themselves?
Oh,
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I think it's one of the lowest levels. Mm-hmm.
Wow, I did not know that.
And a lot of times, like when people come to me want to make vows, whatever, I'm like, maybe make a promise for a short time. Start with yourself. I don't really like the idea of people, unless they're really ready to fulfill it, making like lifetime vows, because I mean, I guess you can get a dispensation, but Jesus said, let your yes be yes and your no be no. I mean, sometimes we do have to make oaths if we go to
If a
court or
lady
something like
makes
that.
a vow about something personal, like let's say I make a vow to give up smoking.
Yeah.
Well, let's say smoking. Let's say drinking. If I make a vow, God, I make a vow that I'll never drink again. Can a priest release him from that vow?
Yeah, but you're playing with fire, and that's where it's just better to say, I'm going to make a resolution not to do this. I mean, there used to be, the Irish used to take something called the pledge on drinking. And I think they usually kept it because they were just very afraid of breaking it. But we Americans, we just run to the closest priest and get a dispensation for everything. So if we're going to run off and get dispensations, it's better just to do your best on a resolution than to make vows and oaths and promises.
That's a good point.
One thing,
right, next clip. Sorry.
One thing I just wanted to say, one thing that this movie does really well and does really subtly is obviously St. Thomas talks about losing friends and human respect, but the movie does a good job of showing him and his family losing like wealth.
Yeah.
It starts off, you see their home.
How did the nobility earn their money?
Court positions like what St. Thomas held at the beginning came with revenues.
Okay.
Now, a nobility often would have their own estates and things like that. St. Thomas wasn't really nobility. He was knighted, but he wasn't a duke or an earl or anything like that. So I don't think he had an estate to make revenue off of. But the movie, it shows when the king first visits, they have this feast prepared.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, you see him letting go of all of his servants because he can't pay them. Later on, you see his daughter heating the house with reeds they had to cut instead of wood that was provided to them. And then at the end of the house, the home at the end of the movie, the house is it's bare. They've had to sell everything.
Yeah.
And they say you have to leave same day, different boats. So if that's historical, then his whole family had to leave England.
Well, he tells them to. He tells them leave England when they come and visit him because
Right.
if they're going to come for him, it's only a matter of time before they come for them.
Yeah, that's why he says
You know?
leave the same day, different boats.
Okay, so I have the next clip I have is that fellowship one here. Let me just pull it up real quick. And then the last one we would have is the prison scene with the family.
The prison scene is the guys. If you're still sticking around, stick around for the prison scene. It is so moving.
Yeah.
Okay.
And all this. I'm not a scholar. I don't know whether the marriage was lawful or not. But damn it, Thomas, look at these names. Why can't you do as I did and come with us for fellowship?
And when we die, and you are sent to heaven for doing your conscience, and I am sent to hell for not doing mine, will you come with me for fellowship?
Oh, wow.
And notice the next thing the cardinal says, so we're damned. He's not even able to say you are. All he knows is he can't.
You want me to play that real quick, fellas?
Yeah, play that. It's only a few more seconds.
I love this next
So
part.
those of us whose names are there are damned, Sir Thomas?
I have no window to look into another man's conscience. I condemn no one.
Then the matter is capable of question.
Certainly.
But that you owe obedience to your king is not capable of question, so weigh a doubt against a certainty and sign.
Some men think the earth is round. Others
I love this.
think it flat. It is a matter capable of question. But if it is flat, will the king's command make it round? And if it is round, will the king's command flatten it? No, I will not sign.
Then you have more regard for your own doubt than the king's command.
For myself, I have no doubt.
No doubt of what?
No doubt that I will not take this oath. But why I will not, you, Master Secretary, will not trick out of me.
It's such a great.
Threatened like a dockside bully.
Even with the comparison of the if the world is round, will the king's command make it flat? Or if it's flat, will the king's command make it round? Just the acknowledgement that the sacrament is what the sacrament is, and no. I mean, you look at divorce, right? And I try to explain divorce to my kids like this. I say, once the Eucharist is consecrated, it can't be unconsecrated. Once it becomes Jesus, it's Jesus. You can't unconsecrate it. Once a husband and wife are married, you can't unmarry them. They are married for all of their lives. That's it. So that's all St. Thomas is saying there. He's like, they're married. Him claiming he's not does not change reality. Reality is not shaped by the words of the king. Reality is created by God.
Yeah. Or like what you mentioned, 2020, 2021, taking the pokey pokes an act of love. Saying it doesn't make it an act of love. Doesn't change it. Doesn't change reality. And that's what's so funny about conscience is 30 years ago, the liberals were using it, where now they're coming after us for saying, can you just respect my conscience? Nope. They won't. Or the tranny issue. That's a good point.
Yeah. Saying something doesn't make it so. You cannot change reality just because you say something. So, all right. So we're coming up on the prison scene.
Yep. So it is like a 6-minute long scene. I was thinking about starting it where they say that Meg, his daughter, is under oath to persuade him. She starts to try to persuade him and go from there. Does that sound good?
Yep.
Okay.
Persuade you? That was silly, Meg. How do you come to do that?
Father, God more regards the thoughts of the heart than the words of the mouth, or so you've always told me.
Yes.
Then say the words of the oath, and in your heart think otherwise.
What is an oath, then? But words we say to God.
If you guys want me to pause at any point to discuss,
well, I think we already said this quote, and I think the next one is the quote I just said. I forgot that it was.
Well, I have something real quick to add here. You guys probably saw the Hallow debate, the fact that they hired Liam Neeson, who's pro ABRTON, and one of the replies I saw on Twitter defending Hallow was, "You don't know the intentions of his heart." Well, here's the problem in that reply: is traditional Catholic theology puts the object of a moral act ahead of the intention. And if the object is bad and the intention is wrong, the whole shebang, the whole deed is actually wrong. So Meg is wrong there, just as the person defending Hallow is there, because it's fine. Many people who do a lot of evil sins might not have evil in their heart, but it's still evil.
And
right?
it's also
So,
a very public sin.
exactly. So you can't say, well, as long as you have good emotions in your heart, you can do evil. I mean, that would be, imagine applying that to the Holocaust. You can drop the pellets in for the gas to go into the chambers as long as you're having warm feelings for the Jews as you do. No, that doesn't work for any of morality.
Or the nuclear weapons used on Japan.
Yeah.
You know, we nuked 200,000 civilians to save 1 million lives. No, it doesn't
Right.
work that way.
That's a consequentialism and moral heresy proportionalism.
Yeah, it's a very big issue of the ends justifies the means, and we do not
Right.
believe that as Catholics. It's plain.
That's right.
You can't do the ends justify the means. No, that is not.
That's exactly right. All this is end justify the means, but it's amazing how much mileage still, after 2,000 years of Catholic morality, people can say as long as your heart's in the right spot. No, that's not how morality works.
Yeah, charging people to pray is a issue in itself, I would say. Also,
I mean, to be fair, they
no, I know they have.
they're putting out a product, right?
Yeah,
you can not. I don't support them at all. I'm not saying that, but
what was the comment?
No, I said it's charging people to pray in general is kind of an iffy thing. But he's right; they're putting out a product, an app. They are hiring people. They have costs.
It's like buying a prayer book. I mean, it's really 100%. Not, but you know what I mean.
I was just going for the joke.
Okay.
But you saw the cathedral in England is charging admission fee for midnight mass, right?
Well, I saw the national
churches all over Europe. I mean, luckily some of them have two. Like I was just in the cathedral in Barcelona, and thankfully there's two entrances. I'm not kidding you. There's two entrances. There's the paid entrance to pray, and there's the museum entrance to look around. Which I guess if Europe's going this secular, that's a little less evil than making the only entrance.
The free entrance to pray
is
and
to
the paid
pray.
Entrance for the
paid entrance.
Yeah,
is
there's a free entrance to go pray.
Okay, you said it the opposite. I was like, wait,
maybe I said it wrong.
Sightseers
there's a free
in
entrance to PRAY pray, and there's the paid entrance to treat it as a museum. And they're separated with a single thing of like a single ribbon. The two entrances. It's really interesting.
Anthony, I think what you're mentioning is the National Cathedral, the Episcopalian one in DC, is charging people $7.
Oh, that's in DC.
That's in DC. Now they call it a cathedral, but it's Episcopalian. It's not Catholic.
Oh, I didn't. I thought it was in England. I thought it was an Anglican church in England that they were charging for. Okay, National Cathedral will not baptize you or your kid, I guess, unless you have participated in the annual giving campaign. So look, that's okay. That's so if you're gonna get married, I hear a lot of people who don't go to church complain that the church asks for a donation if you're going to baptize your kid or if you're going to get married in the church. It's like, if you don't go to mass at that place and you just want to use them for the sacrament, I think they should charge you. It's different if you're a member of the parish and you're regularly giving. They won't charge you if you're a member of the parish and you're participating in things. They charge you if you don't go there and you just want to use them for a service, which it's like, you're going to come here, use us to get the sacrament. You're never going to return again. I don't see a problem with that.
I think the bigger issue is catechesis. You guys know this. I had 5 Novus Ordo parishes in 5 years before I went to tradition. My very first one was in Boulder, and my Novus Ordo parish priest up there, the pastor, told me something very, very valuable. He said, never marry any couple, unless you meet with them 5 times first. And I tried to follow that, at least that first year, because what that does is it sees if they're serious about marriage, if they have any catechesis, if they're living together, all that stuff. So I don't think the money's nearly as important as, are they just using the church because grandma wants cool pictures with, a nice high altar? Or are they getting married because they actually are serious about being Catholic? Doesn't mean they have to be saints. Minimum can't be living together, right? But I think the bigger issue is not payment, but catechesis.
When my parents were about to get married, my dad was raised Lutheran. My mom was Catholic. When they were about to get married, my mom made my dad promise to convert and to raise us as Catholic. But instead of going through RCIA or whatever, our parish priest at the time sat with my dad a few times every week personally, like one-on-one, walking him through until he was ready to have confirmation and convert. So there. I mean, and granted, this was in the 80s, but there's good priests out there for sure.
So
Well,
Rob, when you said that, this reminded me of let's see if anyone can guess in the live chat. My mother was a Lutheran missionary, and my father was a deacon from Mexico. They tried to convert each other, but they got married instead.
what was that?
I don't know that one.
Someone will know in the live.
Oh, wait a
chat.
minute! I know it. It's,
My mother was a Lutheran missionary.
I know
My father
this.
was a
I know
deacon
this.
from
Wait a
Mexico.
minute. It's
They
Jack
tried to-
Black, right?
Yeah. They tried to
Jack
convert
Black.
each other.
Oh, Nacho Libre.
They got married
No.
instead. Yeah.
Is it Nacho Libre? Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it is
Nacho Libre.
Yeah, well, my wife was Lutheran and I was Catholic, and we had to get a dispensation
Yes,
from the bishop. She had to agree to raise the kids Catholic, and then she joined RCIA after the wedding. So
I've told you,
very
I said
similar.
this on a podcast. I think I said on your guys' podcast. This is a really cool story. So, you know, I always say there's way too many dispensations after Vatican II, but there were some before, and here's proof of that. Early 1940s, my grandpa got a dispensation. He's Catholic. My grandpa in the early 1940s got a dispensation to marry a Protestant German girl in Illinois. And after they got married, she took secret lessons from the priest to become Catholic. And then one Sunday, she snuck up. This is like 1944. She snuck up next to him at the altar rail, received communion next to him. He didn't know she had taken lessons and secretly become a Catholic. And they went back to their seats. They're both making their Thanksgiving. He goes, "What did you just do?" And she goes, "I became Catholic, and I'm just now telling you." Isn't that beautiful?
That is.
Yeah.
Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, kind of from this, when my wife was converting, we were married outside the church. I wasn't really practicing at the time. When she got pregnant with our oldest, I decided it was time to come back, and she wanted to convert. So we go through RCIA, and it's one of the last few weeks where we're talking about what it's all, the logistics of how the Easter Vigil is going to work. And I bring, and they go through it all, and it's like, oh, they get done with it. And I'm like, I raise my hand. I'm like, what about marriage convalidation? Are we going to do that at this point? And the director was like, huh? What do you mean? They had no idea. They weren't. And of the class,
You
I would
said
say
convalidation, right? Convalidation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the
right.
word. Yeah. I just want to make sure your audience didn't hear invalidation.
Convalidation.
Convalidation, yes.
That's right. Correct. Because 80% of the class were married people coming into the church.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I had assumed that part of the Easter Vigil was going to be, regularizing or sacramentalizing our marriages within the church. And they were dumbfounded.
Wow.
It was sad. They ended up doing it for our request, thankfully. And luckily everyone else who was married in that group did, we're happy to do it too. So, but it really, it kind of shook me out of mainstream, it shook me out of that.
Wow.
All right, so let's get back to that clip.
Listen, Meg. When a man takes an oath, he's holding his own self in his own hands, like water. And if he opens his fingers then, he needn't hope to find himself again. Some men aren't capable of this, but I'd be loath to think your father one of them.
I have another argument.
Oh, Meg.
In any state that was half good, you would be raised up high, not here, for what you've done already.
All right.
It's not your fault the state's 3/4 bad.
No.
Then if you elect to suffer for it, you elect yourself a hero.
That's very neat. But look now. If we lived in a state where virtue was profitable, common sense would make us saintly. But since we see that avarice, anger, pride, and stupidity commonly profit far beyond charity, modesty, justice, and thought, perhaps we must stand fast a little, even at the risk of being heroes.
I'll pause that.
That's not such a perfect quote for our times. I don't know.
Oh my goodness, man. I actually want to go back and rewatch that
Yeah,
clip
can you do the last 10 seconds one more time, will you?
yeah, because I watched the movie and I didn't catch that.
I actually just missed it this last time. Can you run that one more time, Rob, for 10
we
seconds?
have to, because he says, if oh man, rewatch it. That is
Yep,
I wish
we
you could
got it.
memorize
We got
that quote. That's like so amazing.
Meg.
In any state that was half good, you would be raised up high, not here, for what you've done already.
All right.
It's not your fault the state's 3/4 bad.
No,
Then if you elect to suffer for it, you elect yourself a hero.
that's very neat. But look now. If we lived in a state where virtue was profitable, common sense would make us saintly. But since we see that avarice, anger, pride, and stupidity commonly profit far beyond charity, modesty, justice, and thought, perhaps we must stand fast a little, even at the risk of being heroes.
If you're on Twitter, that tweet's a banger.
Yeah,
someone should
right.
tweet that out right now.
That is a banger. It made me think of something. It's a little bit of a sidetrack, but my family is doing this this thing for Lent where we're practicing the virtues and gifts,
Advent,
and it's
Advent.
numbered through. It's numbered through. Wait, what'd you say?
For
You mean
Advent.
Advent?
Advent. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Well,
I
it's
know, I
for
do that all-
Advent
I do that all the
and
time,
Lent.
too.
But
put that
it's so you
quote up on
got
the screen.
patience, humility, spirit of recollection, interior silence, purity and chastity, poverty, obedience, spirit of penance, mortification, self-control, prudence, fortitude, wisdom. So there's 27 of them, and each week we're going to take one of them and try to focus on one of them. We're doing it randomly, like you pick a number out of the hat, and we're doing it like that. And then come January, we're going to pick a patron saint out of a hat. There's a list of patron saints for it, and we're all going to choose that patron saint for the year, and we're going to ask their intercession throughout the year. But it was just such a cool thing my family decided to do. It's like my cousin Eddie, my sister Teresa's doing it, my brother Joey's doing it. We're all doing it together as a family, and that whole quote was just like, man, we live in a time. If we lived in a time where common sense, I have to memorize that quote. It's so good.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That's a good one. Okay, ready?
This whole movie is so quotable, man. It's like if you guys have never seen this movie in full, because I think a lot of people are just checking this out just to see the conversation.
They put AJ's comment. I'm thinking about this a lot. That's a really great line. Nowadays, I think praying in public or being virtuous is not like being a Pharisee, but rather the opposite. People don't praise you for them, but persecute you. Yeah,
100%. Yeah.
You know,
So when Jesus is saying, "Don't be like the Pharisees praying on the corner," now praying on the corner is not. You're not looking.
It's one reason why so many criticisms of trads as Pharisees really fall flat, because the circumstances are 180 degrees the opposite of what they were.
Right.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, like you're not doing it to look for attention and glory. Like, oh, look how holy I am. You're doing it at the risk of humility, of humiliation. People are going to make fun of you, call you a fool, call you, things like that. So it really isn't. When Jesus says that, he's not saying don't pray on the corner. He's saying don't look for the adulation from people. Is really what he's saying. So if you're praying on the corner and people are spitting on you, that's a holy thing to go and do.
Mrs. C says that movie was written by an atheist. I didn't know that.
I was just gonna. What is so sad to me?
This was written by an atheist.
Is that this movie could never be made today? And I'm not even talking about like they wouldn't promote it. The studios. I'm just saying, no one could write a movie like this, because even if an atheist wrote this sort of just the logic that they give St. Thomas in this,
and it won all these awards,
right? But like no one even, there's no writer in Hollywood that is capable of putting those sort of words in anyone's mouth.
Yeah, I don't suggest anyone watch this movie, but we're really at the point of idiocracy. If anyone's seen that movie,
yeah, I have.
we're there. It's not a parody anymore. We're really at idiocracy, where there's like Gatorade in the drinking fountains, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
No one can think clearly anymore. The diabolical disorientation is far beyond, like, it's not just a theological disorientation. People can't even think logically due to diabolical disorientation these days.
I mean, so this movie came out in 1966. think of how much the world has devolved since then.
Yeah.
But even the 60s was
Yeah, this is during the sexual revolution.
compared to the 60s to like the days of Chesterton. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, Chesterton is a genius, but he wasn't as as much of a standout in his age as he obviously is today, right?
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
I mean, the world has just fallen so far.
Yeah,
it's wild, even in our own lifetimes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's continue with that clip.
I
Daily
do not
Wire.
know. I don't know if this is satire or not, or if this
It
is
better be satire because the
sarcasm.
Daily Wire cannot put something like this out.
The first movie the Daily Wire had nudity in it. So,
and it's a feminist propaganda movie. I mean, it's
yeah,
the woman hero, the girl, the badass chick going and shooting up the bad guys. Like, stop it! like stop it! It's Lara Croft. Like, how is that? How is the Daily Wire going to make it? What's their movie now? The guys dressing up as girls to win the basketball thing. Like, I get they're going for a humor aspect, but they're not putting anything of significant cultural shift out on their platform.
Right.
But in reason, haven't you done as much as God can reasonably want?
How many times do we ask this?
Well, finally, it isn't a matter of reason. Finally, it's a matter of love.
You content then to be shut up here with mice and rats when you might be home with us?
Content? If they'd open a crack that wide, I'd be through it like a bird and back to Chelsea.
I haven't yet told you what the house is like without you.
Don't, Meg.
What we do in the evening, now that you're not there.
Meg, have done.
We don't read because we've no candles. And we don't talk because we're wondering what they're doing to you here.
The king is more merciful than you. He doesn't use the rack.
2 minutes to go, sir. I thought you'd like to know.
2 minutes? Jailer!
Sorry, sir. 2 minutes.
Listen, you must leave the country. All of you must leave the country.
And leave you here?
It makes no difference. They won't let me see you again. You must all go on the same day, but not on the same boat. Different boats from different ports.
After the trial, then?
There'll be no trial. They have no case. Do this for me. I beseech you. Will?
Yes.
Margaret? Alice? Alice, I command you.
Right.
Oh, this is splendid. I know who packed this.
I packed it.
Yes. You still make a superlative custard of it.
Do I?
It's a nice dress you have on. Nice color, anyway.
My God, you think little of me. I know I'm a fool, but I'm not such a fool as at this time to be lamenting for my dresses or to relish complimenting on my custards.
I'm well rebuked.
No.
I'm sick with fear when I think of the worst they may do to me. But worse than that will be to go with you, not understanding why I go.
I don't.
Alice, if you can tell me that you understand, I think I might make a good death if I have to.
Your death's no good to me.
Alice, you must tell me that you understand.
I don't. I don't believe it had to happen.
If you say that, I don't see how I'm to face it.
It's the truth.
Oh, you're an honest woman.
Much good may it do me. I'll tell you what I'm afraid of. That when you've gone, I shall hate you for it.
Well, you mustn't, Alice. You must listen. No.
And as for understanding, I understand that you're the best man that ever met or ever likely to. And if you go, well, God knows why, I suppose. There was God by witness. God's kept deadly quiet about it. And if anyone wants to know my opinion of the king and his council, he only has to ask for it.
Why, it's a lion I married. A lion, a lion.
You could pause it, man. That's just like you compare that to Blessed Franz Jager or whatever. Because Blessed Franz's wife, at least in the movie depiction, because I've never actually read anything on him, his wife was, although she was heartbroken, she understood and she supported him, right? And you have to understand the martyrdom that a wife is going through also there, right? She's giving up her husband. But the thought of giving up your life and your wife doesn't understand it. I mean, as a father, it's like, and a husband, you're just like, please, if I know, like, all you want to hear is, we'll be okay. We will be okay. Go do what you have to do. We promise we'll be okay. But he's not hearing that.
Hold
like,
on. Oh, gosh. They cut the stream.
Did they?
YouTube just cut the stream.
I told you that would happen.
I just got an error and everyone is saying no.
We had a great talk so far.
Want to pop it back up?
Hold on.
So does that mean it doesn't? Does that mean it no one can watch it?
It'll be up. Whatever we did will stay up.
Oh, it will.
Pop a new link up. Just go back on.
Well, it's saying temporarily blocked. I don't know if it might come back here.
Clip. That's funny.
It shows we're still streaming.
I know. Well, I know, but the back end of YouTube is telling me we're not. It's probably still going out on Twitter and Facebook, so we're still live. So keep that in mind. But
we are still live on Twitter and Facebook.
Yeah, I know we are. So let's give it half a minute. Let's give it a minute, see if it comes back. If not, maybe we can. Should I tell everyone to go over to Twitter and Facebook?
I just did.
I think it's because that was probably a solid 2 minutes at least.
Well, that's why I said usually with clips like that, you have to stop every 30 seconds or so and talk over it. You can't just play a movie on your channel. You know?
I'm also this is a movie on YouTube. Like, I'm playing it from YouTube.
Yeah. They don't like
really?
that.
I bought it on YouTube. So yeah.
Oh, funny.
Oh man. Okay, we'll give it a minute here, I guess.
Should we? Let's see.
Okay, our stream is no longer being blocked due to copyright issues. We're good now.
Okay, so we're back on.
Cool.
Can everybody in the chat see us?
Yep, they're saying it.
Okay, they see us. Oh, cool. All
So
right.
should we avoid any further scenes?
Yeah, we'll avoid further clips. I think that was like the heart of the movie,
Yeah.
right? So what I was saying is, if you're a father, a husband, and you know your wife is supporting you in it and she's assuring you, okay, don't worry, we'll be okay. Yeah, you can go to your death saying, okay, everything's at peace, but to go with your family angry at you is just it's worse torture than the death itself.
Wow.
Yeah. And this scene is what made me think of an eager martyr versus a reluctant martyr, and why personally I think in a case like St. Thomas, where your state in life is you're married, you have children. Granted, Margaret's older and at this point married, but I think there could be times, depending on your state in life, where being a reluctant martyr, as much as you can, might be, in my opinion, maybe the more
holy way to go. Look, I mean,
I don't know about holy, but the better thing to do.
You have to realize what's got to be going through your head in that moment. It's, God, you want me to be a good husband and father. I have to lead this family, right? That's the temptation to not go to martyrdom. Like, I'm abandoning my wife and children. Who knows what's going to happen? And how can God be calling me to that? That's a very scary temptation to be dealing with when you're in a situation like that. I couldn't imagine it. I always say, if like you're facing a martyrdom, that's one thing. I think if they're just going to behead you, and I think I could stand tall of that. If they're threatening my family, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
like to make your family suffer for your beliefs is a very different thing than you going to die for what you believe in. That would be torture.
You know, I think you see online so much this kind of like rash bravado of people saying that, you know, they would do it in a heartbeat. They would go to their martyrdom, no problem.
Yeah.
It's like what St. Thomas did. I don't think at any point, even in his sort of nearly mental gymnastics, he never crossed a line where he lied. He never crossed a line where he broke God's law, but he got as close as he could, and it was because he has a family.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that there are times where that might be the better way to go. Maybe tone down the eagerness, and it all depends on your state in life.
Yeah, like St. John Fisher, he could have been the John the Baptist figure, like Father was saying earlier, right? So like John the Baptist goes eagerly and he's calling out Herod to his face, and that's why he gets beheaded. He's that eager. But the reason that Thomas More is so reluctant is because he does have a role as a husband and father and the provider of a family. It's why the celibate priesthood is so important.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You guys ever hear the story? Father Wolf's got a great talk on it. Father Mark Jianqing or something from China, and he was the I don't know really why he's the saint of addicts, because he really shouldn't be, since he was the saint who never kicked his addiction. He was a Chinese man, 19th century, addicted to some narcotic.
Opium.
I think it was morphine or heroin, obviously.
Yep.
And never was able to beat it, but God gave him the gift of martyrdom. And before he died, and the live chat will correct me if I got this wrong, but he insisted he be they took his whole family, kids, grandkids, everyone. I think they were beheaded. Maybe it was worse than that. But they all got killed as Catholics by the Boxer Revolution in China. And he insisted he be the last to encourage them all through their martyrdom. I mean, what does that take as a father and a grandfather to see your whole family martyred?
It's like which early Roman martyr watched her 7 sons.
Maccabees the Maccabees and Second Maccabees.
Well, I think it might be the it was during one of the Roman persecutions. I think it might have been Saint Felicitas, not Felicity and Perpetua, but Saint Felicitas watched her 7 sons be executed in the Colosseum, encouraged them through it, and then was executed herself.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I think there was a couple. I mean, I read the Roman Martyrology almost every day, and there's some beautiful stories of couples being crucified together. Do you know that? The Roman Martyrology has couples being crucified together. It's several times. Someone, could you put that quote? I just found out where to find the live chat. M. Proximus said, Father, can you comment on why or how we do the right thing, even if a spouse is against it or their interests suffer as a result? There's some really complex, I'm the first person in the world to say put common sense ahead of complex moral theology. But this is one of those things. Well, you can never sin. I mean, I'll just say that you can never sin, but there is some complex moral theology on some of those things. And so I guess my answer is 1, don't sin for yourself. And then 2, be as charitable as you can in bringing the person, your spouse, along. Kind of like how Anthony made that correction on the Lord's name in vain. Hey, it's the easiest to you didn't say anyone's going to hell for doing that, even though you very well might go to hell for taking our Lord's name in vain. You just had real lightweight corrections. And so do the right thing yourself, be a great example. And like there's a Protestant book called Love and Respect, and for what women need for love, men need for respect. And if you want to convert your husband, increase that respect. I'm not saying be a doormat to him, right? But you increase that respect, and he very well might follow you into your following of Christ and Catholicism. That's the missing ingredient for a lot of women to convert their non-Catholic husbands.
Because for you women out there that might not know this, one of the greatest fears of a husband and father is that they're not doing enough, that they're not providing enough. In showing that you respect what they do and appreciate that means the world to us. It really does.
Yeah, I have a friend, and
yeah.
she says, man's greatest fear is that he's not enough. Woman's greatest fear is that she's too much.
That is so true.
Yeah, you do sanctify your spouse. I mean, I've told the story about, you know, my wife's conversion. Like, you can't force somebody to convert. It has to be in their heart to convert, you know? So those little things you guys are talking about, them seeing those little acts of love or those little acts of respect are the things that are going to draw them in to be willing to, you know, they see you going out of your way. Holiness is contagious. It just is, you know?
And
People
Anthony, tell about, I mean, I think you've been public about this. I know you told me over at a restaurant in New York City and Brooklyn once, but like what really got your wife all fired up about the faith was when you got fired up, right?
So I converted first and she thought I was a total lunatic, and it caused major fireworks. I had to leave my house, and it was during Lent. And then when I came back home, I just stopped talking to her about the faith. I completely just dropped the subject. I said, I obviously can't convince her through logic and argument because women are illogical and irrational. So I wound up just praying the rosary with my daughters in the den and teaching them to pray it in Latin. And something about doing that lit my wife's heart on fire.
That's
I stopped talking to her about anything. I stopped trying to convince her through, you know, like, this is why you need to do this and this is why you need to do this. And I just started trying to be a better father and a better husband. And I would do these little acts of love for her. But the praying the rosary in Latin in the den while she was cleaning the kitchen just totally melted her heart. When Anthony came home, he complimented his wife's custard, and then she converted.
And her dress. Don't forget the dress.
Yes, her dress.
It was a nice color.
It's a nice
anyway,
color,
he adds
guys.
anyway. It's a nice color anyway.
You know, we haven't mentioned the best quote of the whole movie.
What's that?
That is about the dancer's legs.
Oh, with King Henry.
King Henry.
Here's a dancing leg.
No, Anthony, the part of that story I was trying to remember was you praying your rosary with your daughter. I mean, it was the beauty and the masculinity of that converted her more than apologetics.
100%.
Right?
Yeah, the apologetics were falling on deaf ears. They were causing a fight. I kept trying to tell her to do certain, like, we have to do certain things, and she just was just like, what happened to my husband? Where is my husband? Like, she thought like I was a totally different person. I mean, the first time, I'll tell this story. This was it almost seemed like demonic possession. I had just discovered the Latin Mass, and we go every year with her family. We go to the city and we see a Broadway show. And we were going, it was during Advent. So we go every December during Advent. Taylor Marshall puts out the challenge in 2017, puts out the challenge, go to 4 consecutive Latin Masses in a row during Advent. And I had gone to the first one and I loved it so much that the second week we were going to see this play. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to Holy Innocents in the morning. The play was at like 1 p.m. I'm like, I'll go to Holy Innocents. And my wife wanted to take the train in with her family. I said, me and my son will go to Holy Innocents in the morning. We'll go to Mass and we'll meet you guys at the train station when you get in. I never saw it. It seemed like a demonic presence in her, the way she reacted to me not taking the train with her family. I've never seen my wife act like that. And it was just this thing that it made me afraid. Like, the devil does not want me going to this thing. This is crazy. The way I never saw such an irrational response to such a reasonable request. So it was just something that I just got a little nervous about. And then it took months after that before she finally came around. It was a long time where me and my wife were really going through a rough time. And a lot of it had to do with me converting before her.
Here's another great answer. My husband fasted and prayed for me in adoration to convert. Adoration changes lives. So prayer and fasting, probably everybody listening knows that. I'm a big fan of bringing people to adoration. You can bring someone to adoration, say, even if you're not convinced that's Jesus Christ yet, here's a good book, or just bring a good book, turn your phone off. You don't have to kneel like me. Just sit there. Would you, ask your spouse, would you just come for 1 hour a week? Even if you don't know what I'm doing there, please just come for an hour, read a good book. Let Jesus do the heavy lifting in adoration.
Paul, my wife's not allowed to watch my show. I don't let her watch this. Are you crazy? How do you think I get away with all this stuff I say? That's very good advice, Father. Absolutely.
And also being a great servant to your spouse, whether you're man or wife, be a good servant to your spouse.
Yeah, listen, during Advent is a great time to do family things with pushing for a little extra from what you normally do. So if you're normally doing a family rosary and stuff, it's Advent, guys. We're going to do a little something extra during Advent. Some people do the Jesse tree, but just a little something extra during Advent. Advent's supposed to be penitential. Rob and I are fasting right now, but to do something together as a family during Advent is really an awesome thing. And I always use Advent and Lent as times to say, guys, we're doing a little extra together as a family. Like it's a couple of weeks. I don't care what you guys say. We're sitting down. Everybody get your ass in the den. Let's go.
One thing that we do as a family, it would be really good and easy to start during Advent is I have an alarm on my phone for me, it's 6 a.m., noon, and 6 p.m. For my wife who's at home with the kids, it's 9 a.m., noon, and 6 p.m. But I set church bells as the alarm, and it's basically the Angelus bells.
Yeah.
When I wake up at 6, I pray the Angelus by myself as they're all sleeping. But, at 9 a.m. and noon, my wife prays it with the kids here at home, and then I pray it while I'm at work. And then
That's
at 6
pretty
p.m.,
awesome.
right around dinner time, my phone goes off, the bells go off, and the kids know it's time to pray the Angelus. And my 4-year-old now has it almost all basically memorized.
So that's why Anthony's still living. Anthony's wife is watching Walkman. That's grounds for annulment, my friend.
Better case than
right.
Henry had.
Let's just absolutely. Let's discuss next episode. So do you want to do Miracle Man next, or do you want to try something different?
I like the idea of Miracle Man. So everyone's got a month to watch this. You and I were talking off the air, Anthony. A book club, it's a lot to ask someone to spend 6 hours. Now, this next one's a little longer than a normal one because it's like, 2 hours, 45 minutes?
Oh, no, it's 3.5 hours, the full version. There's a shorter version that's 2 hours and 40 minutes.
No, watch all 3.5 hours. It's on YouTube with Italian.
Okay, so only the short version is on YouTube.
Ooh, gotcha.
So on YouTube is 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Okay.
If you can watch it in Italian with English subtitles, you will get so much more from the movie.
Gotcha.
The full version is on the Formed app, but it's dubbed in English, and it takes away from it so much. The acting is phenomenal in this movie, guys. I think this is the best Catholic movie other than The Passion.
I have to listen to your people for 3.5 hours in your
it's
language.
Amazing. Listen, watch it in Italian with English subtitles.
And this is the one it's Castellino or Castellino.
Yeah.
There's a few different movies on Padre Pio, so make sure you watch the right one on him.
Padre Pio, Miracle Man. If you guys have not seen this movie, I'm telling you, it is the best Catholic movie on a saint I have ever seen. 100%. It gave me a devotion to Padre Pio. It's what started my devotion to Padre Pio. He plays and portrays Padre Pio so well. You hear these stories about Padre Pio where women will come on into the confessional wearing makeup and he'll go, "Get out of here, you clown." Now you hear that and that sounds like so brash, but when you see this movie, you'll understand the personality type that Padre Pio has. There's one scene where he smacks a guy and he tells him, "Get out of here, you lech." He's like, the long one is on YouTube. Oh, that's excellent.
Here, I'll try to find it right now.
It doesn't cover his entire battery of miracles, but it also doesn't downplay the supernatural. So the why I like this movie is it gets the human side and some of I would have appreciated more miracles, but there's some. So I can say what I like about this movie is it gets the natural human side, his sense of humor, his occasional anger, but it also includes some of the miracles. They don't try to say, the stigmata happened by him thinking about it too much. His famous line on that. Go look at a bull for too long, see if you grow horns, right?
Yeah, his stigmata comes through. They show how he gets it, when he gets it, that it comes one time and then it goes away, and then later on it comes. It shows him by locating, shows all the miracle healings. You're 100% right.
Someone said the Italian's on form too.
Okay. On Formed, I couldn't find the Italian. I found it.
You want
dubbed.
Subtitles, not overdubbed.
Right. I don't want it dubbed. I want to see it in Italian with English subtitles, and I can't find it.
Man, the one full length of the one I'm finding on YouTube has Arabic subtitles.
Really?
That's cool
Yeah.
that it's reaching. That's awesome. It's reaching Muslim countries. I mean, obviously, it's probably mostly Coptic Catholic watching it. So let's just put it in people's brains too. We're going to just have it on your calendar last Thursday of the month. The movie. We're
Yeah,
going
so
to
the
let
next
you
one will be
know.
December what?
Like, is it
I'll pull
27th?
it up.
28th, I think.
28th, yes.
Yeah,
December
28th.
28th. So
and so everyone's got a whole month to go, and we will announce at the end of every show the next one.
correct. So
Let's not
what
try
we'll
to tell
do
people
is-
too many ahead. We'll announce it at the end of it.
And maybe what we'll do next episode is we'll pick three options. And we'll say, okay, maybe the audience can help us pick one of the three.
Maybe, but if we're introducing things like people haven't seen, maybe you and me and Rob should be like, how many people have seen The Island?
Let's do The Island after that.
I was going to say, I personally think we should do The Island, the third one. And I know that might surprise you, Anthony, because I know I've given you
Made
crap
comments about
about the Orthodox movies. But here's the thing. I took Russian for 6 years, and I love Russian cinema, actually. So I'm excited for that one.
You've never seen The Island?
I haven't.
Oh my goodness, Rob, it is so good.
I have a lot to say on that one. Maybe the first year you, me, and Rob should pick the movie. I mean, people can have input, but this is kind of like us showing our favorite. Maybe first year we should have mainly us picking with a little bit of input. Because if people just vote for their favorite Catholic movies, it's going to be what everyone's seen.
Right. Bells of St. Mary, Beckett, this, Man for All Seasons. There's
we've seen some weird
very
ones.
common list.
I want to do some obscure stuff that people may not think to do. Like, I really do want to do There Be Dragons. I really want to do, because I want to force Rob to watch some of these movies that I'm always talking about, and he rolls his eyes at me for, because they're good Catholic movies.
Okay, this is another spoiler. I confess, that's when I have my pick for one of the movies, it's definitely going to be I Confess, because there's a lot that people miss.
I never even heard of that.
Yeah, it's a Hitchcock movie on. This isn't going to ruin much because this happens in the first 10 minutes. Priest hears a confession of a murder, and then the murderer decides to pin it on the priest. God's not dead. That's hilarious. The priest, he pins it on the priest, and the priest can't defend himself. Why? Because it was in the confessional.
Oh, that's good.
It's really good.
That's good. I like that. All right, so guys, also leave comments. Let us know if you guys liked this, if this was enjoyable. So after we get off and sign off, just let us know if you guys enjoyed this. You can put movie suggestions in the comments, and then we'll
we might take,
you guys could definitely
Left Behind. Woo!
We should do Left Behind one episode just as a goof.
We could, we could keep doing movies with Catholic themes. Or at some point we could do a
Calvary.
movie.
I actually want this. This might shock people coming from a priest. I actually really want to watch Calvary and Doubt. These are the two movies on the priest-child scandals. I show these movies to people to open this. We have to be talking about this at this point.
Yeah.
And Calvary is the Irish version of Doubt. And just like a European movie, it doesn't go where the typical American wants it to go with the happy.
Well, you and I talked about that movie when we were in Queens, right? Me and you.
Yes,
so me and Father Dave were in New York, and he came to New York, and we spent the day together in New York, and we were talking about Calvary. Calvary, one of the greatest parts of that movie is I just love how that priest is so gritty and like masculine, and he's just like, and he goes to his death. You know what? Let's not ruin it.
And theologically, he's a liberal. I mean, if you listen to his theology, he's not an ultra liberal, but it's written by someone who's clearly not a traditionalist or even a conservative. But he's got a good heart, and it really dives into why. And my mother's four grandparents are from Ireland, so I've been to Ireland. It really gets into why the Irish spirit is so harmed by what the priest did to them. They have the highest rate of the priest-child scandals. It gets into why the Irish, many of the Irish hate the church right now.
Yeah.
Some of it.
Yeah. The movie starts off in the confessional where a man who was molested as a child is going to kill a priest. It's the opening scene of the movie. I'm going to kill you in 1 week, Father.
Yeah. The first 2 minutes is the most filthy speech in the whole movie too. So,
yeah.
I mean, there's one adultery scene between the African and the white gal. There might take our Lord's name in vain, but the first 3 minutes is absolutely the most grinding, filthy. What happened to this boy this adult confessing what happened to him as a boy. Anyway, People, we're not saying this is the one we're doing next, but it's
No, yeah,
I want to watch
we're
some
just
of the I want to watch some of the tough ones and discuss them with people.
Yeah, we
You
want
know,
to
I
do things
think
a little out of the box.
we're not going to be able to avoid certain things in movies. We're just doing this. We're just not going to be able to. So
Yeah,
I think
well,
people
we
just
will
have
if
to
we go
realize that.
strictly Catholic, but we're going to do some tough ones because they're going to cause great conversation. Guys, this isn't a movie review.
No,
Obviously, right? We're not doing a movie review. We're discussing how these movies apply in our lives and how we can talk about the faith through them. So I hope you guys share this with people, that it's something so out of the box. Like Molly said, she loved this movie, but it's not a typical movie review. That's not what we're doing. We're using different parts of the movie to have conversations about life and the faith.
and we may very well do movies that we suggest you don't watch. The point, like you said, is to have conversations about different things, and that's the whole point of this.
And any clips we play will be appropriate. We won't,
Yes,
we're not going to pull.
That's right. You don't
play
have to
that
watch
clip.
anything we suggest, and we may bring some people on. I have access to probably bring on the actor, at least the executive producer of Bella, probably Sound of Freedom, will join us.
Maybe we could do Bella. Maybe we could do Bella one week and bring him on. That would be amazing,
I'll
right?
get the producer. He said he'd go on with me for something else I asked him a couple months ago. So he most likely would join us. He also made Cabrini.
And listen, for the season finale, we're going to do The Passion, and Mel Gibson's going to join us, guys. So
see, we'll try. No, I'll ask him.
We could legit do.
I'll ask him if he'll join us.
Lord of the Rings.
It's a little predictable. Yeah. I'd rather the first two be the ones that Catholics haven't seen.
Right. Let's get a following of people, that enjoys this, and then maybe, like you said, after a year, maybe we do some of the more predictable options, but maybe from unpredictable angles.
Actually, if I did ask Mel, the one I would ask him to join us for would be, what's the one with the Methodist kid who saves all the lives in Japan?
Oh yeah,
Hacksaw Ridge.
I say we do Apocalypto if he's coming on.
Apocalypto would be good too.
A lot of nakedness in that movie.
There is.
Yeah, it's like indigenous stuff.
Yeah.
Come on. That movie's phenomenal, man. I just watched it a couple weeks ago.
I love Hacksaw Ridge.
Hacksaw Ridge, there you go.
I think there are a lot of war sort of movies that really do have like Catholic themes, like self-sacrifice, things like that that we could do.
Yeah, I told Rob with Band of Brothers versus the Pacific. Band of Brothers is Catholic and the Pacific is Protestant.
Then what's the new pilot one going to be?
I don't know. I haven't seen it.
Mormon.
If you watch Band of Brothers, it's all guys from the Northeast. So you got a lot of Philly guys and New York guys, and they're all Italian and Irish Catholics, and you got a couple of Jews. But you have a priest there giving last rites. You have a priest celebrating mass out on the war field.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you do the Pacific, it's all guys from Indiana, and they're from the Bible Belt. So you see it's all very Protestant language,
Midwest, German Lutheran stuff like that.
Yeah, it's really if you pay attention, you pick up on it.
And like, there's a bunch of movies people think are Catholic that I want to avoid. Like, someone just put Kingdom of Heaven in there, and the person
that is the opposite.
No, I'm glad they were ripping on it in the. It's a dumb movie. Or like the black and white one that came out 10 years ago on Fatima. That was bad. It was like, it made it like it was a spooky thing for them to encounter Our Lady. There was 2 Fatima ones the past 15 years, I think, both in black and white. And the first one I saw
there was the more recent one, like two to 3 years ago.
Any better?
I didn't like it.
I wasn't the biggest fan of parts, but it wasn't black and white.
Okay, well, whatever I saw 10, 15 years ago was stinky. So I don't want to do the ones that people think are Catholic, but have really low production value or just are creepy.
I agree. The Fatima 2020 movie was terrible. All right, guys, leave movie suggestions in the comments, and we'll see.
I do like the
Father, first off, it was a brilliant idea to do this. I'm glad you chose to bring it to us because you're friends with a million different people, but
you could have literally done this with.
You could have literally asked any one of your other.
Maybe the only thing we disagree. Let's hear in the live chat. How many people think Anthony needs to get over his opposition to black and white movies? Anybody in the live chat? We might need to do some.
I will do
Scarlet
black and white movie.
Scarlet and the Black. I mean, there's some cool 1940s Catholic movies.
I watched Scarlet and the Black. I already seen that. The black robe is color, but it's like barely color. And so is Scarlet and the Black, I think, right? Scarlet and the Black was black and white.
not
Maybe
sure.
not. Maybe
I think
not.
it was color. I think that was color.
And there's some great,
but-
and there's some great movies. Like The Mission is an example where, remember the Jesuit? It's made in the 80s. It's a really good movie, but there's like that one scene where the Jesuits are justifying infanticide. Well,
Right.
that's a modernist projection
Absolutely.
of modern Jesuits on something in the 17th century you would never see. So not
Never
that we're
would've
going to make
saw.
this like a theological corrective thing, but on
No,
something
but that's a
we're gonna-
point we're going to
yeah,
talk
we're going to have
about.
to say this is ridiculous. No 17th century Jesuit would give the green light to infanticide.
No, but you also see at the end of that movie, you see Robert De Niro's character playing the liberation theology angle. But
You're
then
right.
you see see Jeremy Irons' character saying no martyrdom. You see the contrast between the two, and you can see which one's holy and which one's not.
And it turns out, if you look at the Wikipedia, it's not really close to what actually happened in history. I mean, in some sense, they're both wrong because they both disobey. But that's not actually what happened in history. I just like the movie because it shows, at least the first half shows the love they have for the people in the. You know what? That's a problem with The Mission. The first half's amazing, and the second half stinks.
I would disagree. I think there's very powerful parts of the end of the movie, but I love how it shows the Catholic Church converting pagans, man. It's an amazing thing. You see how the church goes into these indigenous areas and they actually lift these people up, and you see Catholicism changing the face of the earth. I think it's an amazing movie. I think a lot of people underestimate how good a movie it is.
This is right. Scarlet and Black is color, and then I Confess is black and white. You know, someone mentioned Lilies of the Field. I just watched Lilies of the Field for the first time 2 years ago, and I went into it really, really wanting to like it, and I didn't. It was like, okay, German nuns can get along with the Black Baptists. That's the only plot line I saw, which is fine. I have no problem with America learning that German nuns can get along with the Black Baptists, but nobody converted anybody.
I'll say something about this.
I knew you were going to as soon as I saw that.
I will not watch Silence by Scorsese. You know why?
I won't watch it either.
Here's why I won't watch it. Because if I'm ever tortured for Christ, my mind's going to go there as an excuse why I can give in. And I don't want any scenes in my mind why I could give in. That's why I won't watch it.
Silence is a great movie. You just have to turn it off before the end. You can only get through 80% of it. If you watch the first 80,
apparently YouTube's going to do that to us anyways.
there's two movies that are total opposites. Silence, you can watch the first 80% and then you have to turn it off. And then there's another movie where you can only watch the second, like the last 20% of it. I forgot what one it was, but
Sound of Music. I realize there's a little bit of modernism sprinkled in, but I love the movie. I think we should do. Someone suggested Sound of Music. I do love that.
We each pick a song that we need to
I'm
sing.
not watching a musical. I'm not. I would listen to me. I have daughters. Do you know how many times that stupid movie's played in my house? Not a happening.
Love Sound of Music. Not afraid to say it.
Oh man, are you kidding me?
Not afraid to say it.
All right, man. Let's wrap this up. I got work in the morning. Father, thank you so much for joining us and give us all your time. Guys, please leave comments for us. It helps the algorithm. Share the show, man. Spread it around. Please join us on Locals. We are going.
If you guys share this half as well as you shared me and Anthony yelling at each other the other night, this show will do numbers.
I think this is going to be a niche show, but I think once Father posts links on his stuff, I think we'll get a.
You guys yelled at each other. I've been off the internet a little bit the last 2 days. You guys actually yelled at each other on this show.
It was contentious. It was contentious. It was a very contentious show. I think, but all right, we're going to wrap this up, guys.
Thanks for doing the show, guys. I look forward
to it. Thank you. This was fun.
Every last Thursday.
We'll see you guys next month.
Thanks for having me.